Assembly that day, Secretary Frolic. So we are joined by some of the media who could not be here from around the country on Zoom. So we will be juggling both the questions from here as well as from the virtual platform. So without further ado, I wish to invite the chairperson of the National Council of Provinces to present the statement. Thank you.
Afternoon, and greetings to all of you and all the media persons who have attended this important briefing. We have just been in a briefing meeting with some of the role players on this devastating incident of fire that gutted some important buildings of the parliamentary precinct and its aftermath. We are indeed deeply saddened by this incident. We are pained by the damage to the old Assembly chamber and the National Assembly chamber and all the critical offices of Parliament, which is a national key point and the legislative seat of our country, whose value is beyond any measure. This democratic institution has a deep history which represents unparalleled heritage treasures for our country and a source of social unity and cohesion required in our nation building program. We can confirm that one of the biggest losses that the people of South Africa have suffered in this fire is the complete burning down of the National Assembly chamber, a seat of crucial plenary settings of the National Assembly and joint sittings of the two houses, the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces. The Assembly, as one of the two houses of Parliament, occupies an important place in the history and evolution of our constitutional democracy. This is a house where over 2,000 transformative pieces of legislation have been passed since the dawn of our democracy. The National Assembly building is historically the third of a series of phases of the interlinked buildings comprising Parliament. It was built between 1983 and 1985 to accommodate the expanded needs of the apartheid tricameral Parliament. The building follows the same neoclassical style of the other two buildings, and a notable feature of the facades in that all the decorative elements were skillfully made up of the prefabricated concrete using special molds prepared for the purpose. The architects all made extensive use of local granite and marble for the lobbies, with rich geometric details and patterns. The original 1885 building of the National Council of Provinces, a building from 100 years earlier. In 2008, new offices were added for the President, the Speaker, and the Deputy Speaker. These new additions have not been affected by the fire. We appreciate the fact that some important sections were saved, These include the NCOP chamber and offices, the parliamentary library, the museum including artworks and heritage objects, as well as the case camera tapestry of the ground floor of the old assembly building. We wish to reiterate our gratitude to the responsive firefighting and rescue services of the city of Cape Town, the Minister and the Department of Public Works, Ms. Patricia Lille, and the South African Police Services, as well as all our officials. We are grateful to the President Cyril Ramaphosa, and a number of members of his executive who have been hands-on from the outset and providing moral support to the firefighters. The multi-agency and the multi-pronged investigations are underway and will be in full swing once the whole building is declared safe and handed over to the investigation team. We wish to assure all the people of South Africa that we will leave no stone unturned to enable appropriate actions to be taken by all relevant authorities. As demonstrated during the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, Parliament will once again demonstrate its resilience and adaptability to ensure sustainable delivery on its three-legged mandate of lawmaking, executive oversight, and public participation. This is just another phase that requires that resilience to ensure that the work of Parliament carries on with minimal disruption, in consultation with other arms of the state, including the presidency and the custodian of public facilities, the Department of Public Works. We wish to assure you that the State of the Nation address and the budget speech and other programs will proceed as planned. Details will be shared when concrete alternatives are done. We have noted a number of speculative reports regarding the cause of this incident, including those circulating in the social media space. What has been even more worrying is that some of these statements have been attributed to formal statements by the organizations. We reiterate our appeal for calm, caution against any speculation, and encourage everyone to afford both the law enforcement authorities and forensic teams the space to investigate and provide much needed conclusive information. The Precinct of Parliament continued to be guided by the South African Police Services, which was responsible for alerting the fire department when the fire started. Anyone with valuable information that they feel could assist in the investigations is encouraged to supply such to the relevant authorities, instead of making wild and unhelpful speculations. As the presiding officers, we are humbled by the messages of support and offers for assistance from various organizations and public institutions. We have received offers from both the provincial and local governments in the Western Cape for the temporary use of their office space and meeting rooms. We have also received messages of support from sister organizations such as the Commonwealth Parliamentary Forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chairperson of the NCOP. I'm now going to hand over to the Minister of Public Works, Patricia. Over to you, Minister.
Thank you. Good afternoon again to everyone. Just some additional information. this morning, the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure brought in a team of engineers, that include electrical engineers, structural engineers, and also mechanical engineers, together with an architect. Included in the team, we also have some young professionals that will also be learning from the experienced team that we brought in. For today, they could not gain access to the fire scene. The temperature inside the building is still plus minus 100 degrees Celsius, down from what it was yesterday at over 400 degrees Celsius. But what they've done in the meantime is to use a drone that they are putting inside the building to assess the structure of the building until the temperatures can cool down. So the engineers will focus on the repairs that need to be done, also on the cost of the repairs and the time frames for the repairs. Then we've also brought in a fire expert that will determine exactly where the fire started, together with a fire forensic team. Their work has also started today. We are being informed by the professional teams that we can expect a preliminary report by Friday morning about their preliminary findings, and that report will then be shared also with Madam Speaker and the presiding officers, and we will then decide together what to do. And once we've seen the full extent of the cost and what need to be prepared. So I just wanted to make that addition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. So we are going to then open the floor for questions. We're beginning with the colleagues who are physically present here, and then we will also ask one of my colleagues to assist thereafter with the questions from Zoom. So, okay, just take maybe about 5. Just introduce yourself and the media institution where you come from, and then shoot. You'll be the second. You'll be the third. Are you the first? You will be the fourth. Another one? You will be the fifth. Okay. 5 hands in that particular order. Thank you very much.
Williams, Cape August. I just want to know if there is any sort of preliminary costs that you can maybe, or estimates that you can maybe share. And another question is, what are some of the alternative venues that are being considered?
Next one.
Hi, Martin Charles from News 24. Speaker, my question is to you. We spoke to some opposition parties outside the parliamentary precinct. They said that, for months already there's been a dwindling amount of safety and security. They've raised it with you before. I have to ask you whether you're going to be taking any responsibility for that, and will you admit that you've dropped the ball in some way? Thank you.
Okay, I think now we'll go to the fourth. Is it the fourth hand? The third. Okay.
My name is Mapisa-Nqakula. I'm from Lille. Now that the person has been arrested, there is a suspect, is the South African government going to look into this as a possible treasonous attack? Does the government feel that this is an attack on the democracy of this country? Thank you.
All right.
The next hand? I think yours is your fourth, yeah, the fourth one. And then you will come after.
I think this is for you, Speaker. It is a question that we asked the Hawks, whether anyone else may be held liable for what happened. I know that Mark and I spoke about whether you'll be taking any type of responsibility, but when we're looking at whether there was a lapse in security, a breach in certain protocols, is there the possibility that other people might also be found liable for what happened as these investigations continue? Is there a possibility of that?
Okay, thank you. And then the last for this round.
Afternoon, Sarah Jones from Eyewitness News. With less than 2 weeks to go before the opening of Parliament, I just want to find out when we might have an idea of that alternative accommodation for Parliament workers. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I'm just going to start with the Speaker of the National Assembly to deal with the questions, and then we'll be followed by the Minister, and then the House Chairpersons and the Deputy, if there are any other additions to that.
Thank you very much, Mutopo, and thank you very much to you, ladies and gentlemen of the media. Let me start with the last question, which is whether there will be any other person who will take responsibility for what has happened here in Parliament. The information which I have at my disposal from the Secretary of Parliament is that indeed there was a report which was commissioned. There was a commissioning of the report of an audit which came out with a report which outlined the risks and the loopholes in terms of security here in Parliament. The response to that, because there were recommendations which formed part of the report, findings and recommendations. All of those recommendations form part of a plan, right, of Parliament to implement safety and security measures. That's the one issue. The second one is the reported arrest of a suspect. We are yet, as presiding officers, we are yet to receive a report from the police. At 4 o'clock this afternoon, we will be having a meeting with the police, who will then brief us about the arrested suspect. But of course, yesterday, you'll recall that the President, who is the head of state, had been briefed by the commander of the police who was on the ground to the effect that a suspect has been arrested. So I guess at 4 o'clock, it will be a matter of confirming that to the presiding officers. Now, the gentleman there says, I've dropped the ball. I don't know in what way one dropped the ball on this matter. Parliament is a national key point. It is the responsibility of both Parliament and the police to make sure that the security of Parliament is 100%. Can you just hold on? Hold on. What months are you talking about?
Because we spoke to officials like I've seen, and they said they reported breaking officers as well.
I'm really sorry if you are we are trying to align that with the fact that I started a few months ago, which is 2-3 months ago. I'm not responsible for any dropping of the ball in terms of security in Parliament. If anything, The report I have received, if you want to attach that to me, sorry. Now, the report I have received from the Secretary of Parliament is to the effect that the cameras of Parliament, because there's been a report circulating that the cameras were not working. Now, just for correction, for the record, the cameras of Parliament were all working. Not only has that been confirmed by the Secretary of Parliament, it has also been confirmed by the person responsible for that from the Department of Public Works. So this morning, when we received the report about what has happened on these developments, the one thing she assured us about, even before the Secretary of Parliament could, raise the matter with us, is that Public Works actually assured us that everything in relation to the cameras was working. Now you are saying members of Parliament have reported to me before that there have been a break-in. You are referring to the case of Honorable Mazzoni, who I spoke to when there was a break-in in her office, which matter I raised here in Parliament, and I was given this reassurance. So please, just try to be smart sometimes when you raise issues.
But with all due respect, ma'am, I think that you're evading the question.
I'm not evading the question. The point is you are saying I must take responsibility for a burning down of Parliament. What are you saying?
I'm saying, ma'am.
That's exactly what you are saying.
Act like this is tantamount to treason. Are you aware of that?
Me?
Yes. Are you?
So I'm now going to be charged for treason.
What guarantee do you have,
what?
Africans, that the democracy is not under attack?
This lady here, right, at any given time, has always ensured that she defends the democracy she so hardly fought for. This woman here, okay? And I will not take responsibility for anything that which you are suggesting, which is that there may be charges of treason for me as Speaker because Parliament bent down. However, I am one person who came out yesterday and said any attack, if there's an attack on Parliament, it is an attack on the democracy of the people of South Africa, which we so hardly fought for, right? So the suggestions and the implications of what you are saying actually are that I must take responsibility because I dropped the ball. I'm here 2.5 months, if not 3 months, by the way. If I may say this. I'm here 2.5 months, and by the way, up until now, there is nothing which suggests to me that as Parliament there was a dropping of the ball, because in the reports given to us together with the Minister of Public Works this morning, there wasn't such an indication. And then on the matter of the preliminary costs, I don't know what the Minister will say, but the other issue raised is that of what alternative accommodation are we considering? Just to say that, and I must say this, that one of the things which have been demonstrated by what has happened here is the importance of the unity of South African people. The support which we have received as Parliament, the support which we have received as the presiding officers, what to me was striking was that the fact that this is the legislative arm of the state is neither here nor there. The minister here responsible for infrastructure was on site here even before any one of us were here. The president, who is head of the executive, was also here before any of us could be here. And I think that for me, not only that, I should say, Following that, we have received offers. We have received an offer from the ICC, the International, the City ICC. Now the ICC, I'm used to talking about the Convention Center. The Cape Town Convention Center has made an offer that we can use their facilities and the conditions under which that would have to be done, which is very good. That's one offer. The second offer was made by the mayor of Cape Town, of the city, Honorable Gordon Hill, a former member of Parliament. And the offer is that, one, renovations have been done at the City Hall, for instance. So if we wanted to use the City Hall at any given time for the State of the Nation address, it is the kind of venue which could take up to 8,000 people. And this was the conversation we had this morning. But not only that, he also offered their chambers, their own chamber, their assembly, for us to use as Parliament. And I'm making this point because it's a matter which is very important for South Africans to take note of. That when such things, when crisis occurs, it provides an opportunity for the country to come together and unite in finding a solution. And this is what I picked up from the mayor of the city. Now, I'm raising this because some people will say, but the mayor of the city is not part of the ANC. No. What I'm illustrating is that at this point in time, we are at a point where, irrespective of which political party people come from, people are coming forward to provide whatever help they can to the Parliament of the Republic of South Africa. I think those are the issues I would have wanted to respond to. The Minister of Public Works will then talk to the issue of the cost, because I'm not familiar with this.
The question about being
Or maybe I should respond to that, because yesterday, when the matter was raised that it's an attack on Parliament, my response to that was, whatever is an attack on Parliament would mean an attack on our democracy, because this house here, called Parliament, it's a house where the aspirations of the South African people are discussed. This is a house where decisions are taken. This is a house where policies are developed. This is a house where members gather together and exercise oversight over the executive. And therefore, if indeed in the report, which is to be presented to us by the police, there are indications of an attack on Parliament, an attack, a deliberate attack, obviously all of us together would have to appreciate the fact that, okay, democracy is under threat. Somebody is threatening our democracy. And what do? You act accordingly. The state, the law enforcement agencies act on the basis of information which they shall have gathered during the course of their investigation. So, yesterday, when I responded to that issue, it is because already there was this and that, this in social media, and I said, beware of speculating on matters before you have received a report that suggests that there was a deliberate. Now, once the police have given us that, And once, of course, there's an arrest of a suspect, obviously we then all have to sit back and say, okay, what is the nature of this thing? And I am saying still, until such time the police or the Hawks who are responsible for the investigation on this case, until such time they have presented to, of course they will not present the nitty-gritties, the detail of the case, but once there's a suggestion here that, look, indeed we have a suspect, indeed the suspect is being charged, indeed for ABC, D&E, obviously all of us as South Africans, then we have to come together in the same way that we're holding hands together. Now, we have to, you see, I was saying to the team earlier on when we were meeting, I said, what is the purpose of this media briefing? The purpose of this media briefing is to reassure the nation. Purpose of this media briefing is to assure the people of South Africa that the State of the Nation address will continue. Whether there are distractors or not, but the SONA will continue. The budget of this country will be passed. And thirdly, work of the committees will continue. So, in a nutshell, saying I'm humbled by the manner in which South Africans are moving to find a solution to the challenge, the problems which we are having. For me, that call from the Mayor of Cape Town, Gordon Hill, Honorable Member, talk to the resilience of South Africans, the commitment of South Africans to building social cohesion and the nation in this country. Thank you.
Thank you. Just on the repairs. I did explain earlier on that a professional engineering team only arrived in Cape Town this morning. They're now busy with the assessment of the repairs, the cost, and the time frame it will take to do the repairs. They have said to me that by Friday morning they will be able to give us a preliminary report of their estimates. So that is still coming Friday morning. The second point that I think that we all need to go back to, and I will advise the media to look into, there's an Act of Parliament called the Critical Infrastructure Act of 2019. That Act of Parliament deals with all the national key points and how they need to be treated. Before we start blaming anybody, I think we need to look at that act, and you will see in terms of the law what we are supposed to be doing. Then just the point also put to Madam Speaker. Yes, we've confirmed that the CCTV cameras at Parliament were working. Indeed, the footage that we have looked at comes from those cameras that they were working. The problem is not with the Speaker. The problem comes in that there was no monitoring of the CCTV cameras on that fateful night. And the monitoring of the CCTV cameras in terms of parliamentary security and the police has been done by the police. And that is why the police were able to alert the fire department when they arrived. And that is also under investigation to see why it was not picked up earlier that we've had somebody in the building. So certainly there was a security breach. And again, it is the Department of Police that will investigate that, and like anything else, we are in a moving situation because a lot of things are not conclusive. And until we've got all the conclusive reports, we will be able then to form an opinion as to where some of the things went wrong on that day. Thank you very much.
Sorry. Honorable presiding officers and Minister, there is a request from those who are watching this on TV that perhaps if you can lower the masks, the volume might increase a little bit. I'm sorry about that. I think let's just try that and see if the sound volume will improve. Okay, is there any other comments from the presiding officers regarding the questions? Deputy Chairperson, Patricia.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the session. The issue was I think the issue of accommodation is too wrong, and also the question came up like that, and that is what is the alternative for workers' parliament? According to the briefing that we have received, there is no damage to any officers of staff or of the administration. It was just the officers of members of parliament. It was according to the briefing that we received. To conclude that question that was responded to by the speaker, I also think I wanted to respond on the issue of the monitoring, but it was responded to by the minister. So thank you very much.
No, thank you very much. Can we please give the colleagues on virtual platform also the opportunity? We'll come back to you. I know that I can see your hands. I'm going to ask Kutala to go through the questions that have been deposited on the Zoom platform. Just 5 of them, or from 5 journalists.
One from Linda Enso on the Zoom platform. Has the historical collection of Hansard been destroyed? The rest of the questions are from our WhatsApp group. One is from Eunice, Mail and Guardian. When did Parliament or the Speaker receive the report on safety at Parliament? And the other one, another question, which is the third one from Simon, Daily Sun. Nehau has come to claim that protection services were told not to work on weekends and night shift. Whose decision was that? Does the minister and the speaker believe that had the protection services were on duty, this incident would have been avoided? Jan Dilang from Rapport. Madam Speaker, do you agree that the BDO report titled Review of Parliament's Prestige Construction Project is a public document and should be made public? If so, why hasn't it been made public despite requests for access to the report by members of Parliament? And the last one for this round, Vuyani Green, SABC. When will Parliament take journalists on a guided tour on the building to get a first-hand experience of the scale of the damage? Will this incident lead to a complete overhaul of security measures within the precinct? These are the first 5, and we'll come back for the others. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kutala. Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Mutapo. I think some of the questions will be taken by the chair on issues of the historical collection and others. But let me talk to the BDO report. You are correct that the BDO report is a public document, or rather it will be a public document The BDO report was handed over to me by Minister Lille about 2 months ago, after she realized that I had not as yet, and I want to say yet, I had not been briefed about the contents of that report. So I don't want to say after realizing that I had not been briefed. I had not been briefed as yet because I have been receiving briefings ever since I arrived here, joined Parliament. So the BDO report is a report which we've agreed together with the Minister of Public Works. It's a report, it's a bulky report, by the way, very bulky. It's a report which the two of us, together with the officials of our two, the Department of Public Works and the Secretary of Parliament, will have to go through and identify all of the findings, look at the recommendations, and act accordingly. So we have agreed on that. And of course, a report which is being studied cannot be handed over to members of Parliament. You hand over a report when you present to members of Parliament and you are conversant also with the issues which are being raised in the report. I think I should say this. There is no secret about the BDO report. The BDO report, all members of Parliament will have access to the BDO report, but what is important is that between myself and the Minister, and together with our senior government officials and senior parliamentary officials, we need to go through that report, identify the critical areas which require, recommendations which require us to act on. On the guided tour, I'm sure the Minister did say this even yesterday, it is very difficult for us to anticipate when the guided we will be able to take you on a guided tour, because we too do not have access to the parliamentary buildings as yet. Particularly because one, that right now is still a crime scene and therefore it's cordoned off. We should not have access to it. That's number one. But secondly, we also have forensic investigators who are working together with the police who will come out and indicate what the cause of the fire is and even how it was done and where it started. As things are now, the information we have, I mean, we had a very, I must say that, a very informative session just before we started. That's why we delayed the media briefing with the head of fire, what do you call it, Minister?
The fire chief.
Fire chief?
Yeah.
I nearly said fire brigade. Now, the head of the fire chief gave us a briefing because we just need to understand. We are also very anxious. We're sitting here anxiously awaiting to see what is destroyed and what has not been destroyed. So the chief says, one, we've not seen this now. This is a third-party report, but I should say we've seen some footage of what they have in their possession. I must say this, and I want to express this as my personal view, and I think other people may be feeling the same way too, which is there was fire around the old assembly building. And as you have heard from the chairperson through the statement, there was no destruction of the old assembly. There was just some damage of some of the area there. And then, those of you who know Parliament will know that between the old assembly and the National Assembly, right, the new National Assembly, There's a whole passage there, which passage has a library as well, where we walk. You know, that's a whole passage where we walk when we move from the one old part of the chamber to the new one. He says, the National Assembly is, in a sense, it's totally gutted. You need to know this. You need to know about it because we also learn that even the ceiling of the National Assembly has now collapsed. Now the question, which I'm sure even a young child would ask, is how is it possible that fire which started in some part of the old assembly would find itself to the new assembly, to the new chamber, without fire or some damage along the way in the corridors leading to the new chamber? We don't know. We don't know. But we are also aware that we were told that the third floor of the old assembly, where the men's gym is totally destroyed. So it's we are not forensic investigators, but certainly those who are forensic investigators will be the best people to give us to the many answers, give us answers to the many questions which we have as the presiding officers. It's a very abnormal kind of situation. We know that, and I'm sure you are aware of this, on the 16th of March there was fire in Parliament. And there is a report which came out of that process. And the report, the findings which were made were that it was an electrical fault. An electrical fault. And already Public Works is seized with implementation of the recommendations which are contained in that report. I also am aware of this because I'm well informed. The Secretary of Parliament has briefed me about what it is that is being done by Public Works within the precinct here to address that particular issue. So, some people will want to know then, to analyze, you use your own analysis, what happened. On the 16th, it was an electrical fault. This time, the extent of the damage is such that it's not possible that to link it to what happened on the 16th of March. But as I say, all of this information, it is not correct to speculate on what happened, but rather to say we will await the investigations to be concluded, and once we have something conclusive, we can report on about what has happened, or if there are details which will emerge during the course of the trial of the person who is being charged, we'll probably hear during that time. But for now, if on the 16th of March it took 2 months for Public Works to have access to the building, right? You can imagine now, with the kind of destruction which is there, just how long it will take for us to be allowed to have access to that building. I don't know, maybe Minister Lille would be able to respond to that, but as of now, the police are still there. Even the firefighters, the chief of the firefighters told us earlier that they still have about 10 firefighters inside the building, which means that there are still areas where the fire has not been totally extinguished. So, once we are given an opportunity, no matter how long it takes, to view the building, you will also be afforded that opportunity and you'll be taken on a guided tour of the assembly. I think that's all, Minister and Chairperson, I'd like to say.
Yes. No, thank you very much. Just on the question of Hansard or historical records, there's no indication that we have lost Hansard and relevant historical records. All that we can say at this stage is we'll await a detailed assessment, and on receiving those reports, only then can one really make a determination.
Okay, I'm sorry to speak after you've spoken, Chairperson, because I had said I'm done. But I think there's a matter which we need to talk to, which was raised earlier on. It was an oversight on my part not to respond to it, which is the protection services. The spokesperson of NEHAU yesterday made a statement to the effect that Parliament had given them, the protection services, a directive, one, to do away with the night shift due to financial constraints, but two, to just cut down even on the personnel. From the reports, I must say this, for on that one, I did not wait for a meeting, which we had this morning. Yesterday already, as this story was developing, I called the Secretary of Parliament just to seek clarity from her as to whether there is such a decision by the management of Parliament. And I'm told there isn't such a decision. There isn't such a decision. Now, if anything, whether parliamentary services, protection services, which we are still, by the way, going to engage with them. I think we are meeting with them tomorrow. We're still going to meet with the head of the parliamentary protection services, as we are going to be meeting with the police as well. Whoever must account for what happened. Whether it is the police who were not on duty, without the knowledge of their seniors, I don't know. But we would have expected that when Parliament, when fire started in one corner, it would have been quickly picked up and something would have been done. And we believe that we would not be having the damage at the scale at which we have right now, even though, and I want to say this because it's important that we make this point, we learned that the firefighters, remember, they are just up the road. It took them less than 6 minutes to get here. And for that, we should commend them. We should commend the firefighters. I think they did everything, they did their best to extinguish the fire, to prevent extensive damage within the parliamentary precinct. And that we have a damage of this magnitude is something which I believe we can only be assisted by those who are investigating, because they will be able to tell us whether in fact there was an inflammable substance used or what. But if you look and hear from them describing what has happened inside the National Assembly, obviously it leaves you with a lot of questions about what may have happened. And I think those are the people who will provide better clarity on the matter. So, my view and the view of the presiding officers is really, it is totally irresponsible for the leadership of NEHAU in Parliament, this branch of NEHAU, to give an impression to South Africans that this happened because the management of Parliament took a decision to cut down on the funding for the security of Parliament, or even cut down on the personnel. It is really disingenuous on anyone, and I think it's unfortunate because this happens at a time when there has been a letter, communication which was issued to the effect that there will be a disruption, by the way, of the State of the Nation address due to some issues relevant to wages negotiations. But what is strange is that people made the statement before they declared a deadlock at the negotiations chamber. So I'm just saying on that matter, it is not a matter we want to go to town about, but it is a matter we are going to be interacting with the branch of NEHAU in Parliament. What I find interesting, though, is that our plan was to meet with them tomorrow, and the response I've received so far is that there's one person who we are allowed to interact with, and I think it would be proper, just as people who work together, and as South Africans, in the light of the crisis we're finding ourselves in, that we sit, employer, employees, yes, but really the magnitude of the damage caused, the destruction of the House of Assembly, the House of Parliament, requires that whatever differences you may be having amongst ourselves as employer, employees, we sit together and understand that we have a crisis now and all of us have to find a way forward. It cannot be that all South Africans are trying to help us find a solution about how we move forward on this matter, and then you have your own staff which is now attributing everything which has happened to some statement, some notion, something which somebody woke up and decided this may be what have happened, because it hasn't happened. And you are free to engage with the Secretary of Parliament, who is the accounting officer, on this matter of protection services. You are also free to engage with her, even on the matter which is on the table right now, which is whether there's a deadlock or not, whether this is now happening, whether people are saying this is what protection services were cut down because there's a deadlock at the negotiations table. I don't believe that is so. The point is, the report says there hasn't been a reduction of hours for the protection services, and anyway, protection services also collaborate their activities with police, because police men and women are supposed to be within this precinct 24 hours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Just switch off the mic.
Mutopo here has reminded me and given me a piece of paper reminding me that even with regards to the BDO report, even though it is not out, even though it was just handed recently over to me by the minister, but from the side of Public Works, already action has been taken in relation to the BDO report. Thank you.
The Honorable Cronic, as I introduced him earlier, he deals with committees oversight but also with ICT, so he just needs to deal with the issue of potential loss of
No, thank you, Mr. Mutapu. I wish to confirm, and the chairperson of the NCOP has briefly referred to it, that in terms of the historical collection of Hansard documents, that is being kept in the library, and the library is not damaged in this process. So we believe those historical documents there are safe, even though we've not had the opportunity to access the building yet. But also I want to emphasize that over the last few years, Parliament has invested quite a bit of money to start with the digitization process of important documents. And Parliament has 2 data centers where information is stored. The primary data center is not affected at all because it is not in the buildings that has been damaged or destroyed. The secondary data center is in the basement of the new wing of Parliament, and that is the building where there's extensive damage. Fortunately, before the electricity was shut down, the staff managed to disconnect the power supply to the secondary data center, and which is a good thing, which means that there should not be too much damage there. Of course, it's affecting the Wi-Fi connection in a number of buildings in Parliament, including this one. And once we have access, then the staff will make a determination on the secondary data center that is in the basement of the new wing of the National Assembly. Thank you, Mr. Motapo.
Thank you very much. I think we have dealt with this round of questions. Is Minister okay?
Fine.
Okay. We are going to take the last round. The last round, we are going to combine both the colleagues who are physical as well as those who are on virtual. Okay, starting with here, you will be the first and then you will be the second. And then you'll be the third. You will be the fourth. So those are 4. You want to come again? You will be the 5th, and then we go then to take the equal number on virtual, so that this round we know that is the last round of all the questions.
Thank you, Mr. Motapo. There's a question from Nosiviwe, Sunday Times. She's saying she couldn't hear the speaker's comments when she started. However, the question is, did Parliament implement the recommendations of the May 2018 Safety, Health and Environmental Audit Report? Did it implement the recommendations of the report following the March 2021 fire? The next question is from Christian News 24 to the Minister, Honorable Lille. A report over the previous fire by Parliament's fire and incident restoration team highlighted various problems in regard to fire warning systems, such as the shortage of smoke detectors in the old assembly building, and various recommendations were made. Have all these recommendations been implemented? And to the Speaker, Neham in the Western Cape said that heads must roll over the fire. Do you agree, and who do you think should face the music in this regard? And lastly, there are allegations that there were no parliamentary security personnel in the precinct when the fire broke out because they are not scheduled to work on Sunday and public holiday. Will you please confirm this and provide reasons as to why not? And the last one from Nosiviwe as well, when is Parliament appointing head of security? It's been almost 5 years since Ms. Holtzman was dismissed. That's all from the online platform.
Please, gentlemen at the back, please can you please keep it down. We are still in a press conference and your voices are distracting. Colleagues who are here in the order that I requested.
Lula Mamaja, SABC. Speaker, if a person has been arrested for this, he was found within the parliamentary precinct, what immediate security measures are you going to implement to tighten security in this institution?
Okay, the second hand, and I'm sure you have listened to other questions from digital platforms, so you don't have to repeat the question that has already been asked. Thank you. Second one.
There were some reports of technical failures of fire alarm systems in the building, as well as a delay in shutting down power once the fire started. Did you get to the what kind of technical issues arose during the course of the fire and what kind of impact that had?
The next one.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Muloko. Sorry, I didn't hear the previous question. I hope I'm not going to repeat it. But Minister Nosiviwe and the Speaker or Chairperson, on the issue of there have been suggestions already, especially from one party, the EFF, that this fire, this incident presents an opportunity for Parliament to be moved to Pretoria. Has government made an assessment of how much it's going to cost, whether it moves now or maybe in the future? Is it something that is on the pipeline to move Parliament? Has it been costed, or is it practical that this fire Parliament can be abandoned and made to Pretoria?
I think we're on the fourth hand.
Yes.
It was you. Yes.
Or just statement from the Mapisa-Nqakula. Will we be able to get footage from the drone?
From the
drone that you guys are using?
From the drone?
No, the drone.
Oh, from the drone.
The drone.
There's a minister that we're dealing with. She's very knowledgeable about drones. Okay, the last one.
Sarah from Nosiviwe. Coming into Parliament today was frighteningly easy. I didn't have to show any kind of credentials on that. So just in terms of what additional security measures are being put in place when we're waiting for that fire to be extinguished, what additional measures can we expect given this was an attack on the national security?
Thank you very much. That is the last round. Honorable Minister.
Let me start. Thank you. But the sound is on. This thing must come over here. Say thank you. Just on the March 16 fire at Parliament, I'll just give you some dates of what transpired after that. And on the 16th of March, we had the fire. Then we did some emergency work, including the grounding of the lifts, the termination of the electrical power, and shutting down of the air conditioning system to the affected wing and building. So we did some work immediately. Then the final report from the forensic fire team was presented to us only on the 17th of May 2021. And the forensic report found that there was no foul play, and it was the cause of the fire was an electrical fault. Then on the 14th of May 2021, we presented the report to Parliament with all the findings and the recommendations for repairs, and also a timeline for the repairs. We then started with the final estimate and the cost of the repairs after the fire. And that report was concluded by the 30th of May 2021. Then we had to go through a string of approval processes, including the South African Heritage Agency, because they supervise any heritage building. They took about 2 to 3 months. And then it was finally concluding all the approvals we received on the 14th of September 2021. Then on the 8th of October 2021, the Regional Office of Public Works were also instructed by the Heritage Agency that we must appoint a specialist heritage consultant that can do further assessments, which we did. And then finally, on the 29th of November 2021, that is when all the necessary requirements in terms of laws, we have concluded that. And then on the 29th of November, we received as a normal circular from National Treasury that as from the 29th of November, that no tenders should be publicized and advertised over the festive season. For one reason, also that the building construction industry, they closed down until the 15th of January. So the plan was that on the 15th of January, the tender was going to go out. The tender was approved by the National Treasury, and then the fire now happened a few days ago. So our original plan to fix that part of the building, we did fix most of it, but the specification from the Heritage Agency, we had to wait for them to approve. Then now with the second fire, that whole section was destroyed, so we will not go out now for a tender to repair that part of Parliament, because it is being destroyed completely. So that is what I can report on the March 2021 fire. Then there was a request for footage from the drones. We will only be able to provide it to you by Friday, because once the temperatures has lowered in those affected areas, then certainly I will remember that News 24 is asking for footage from there. The issue of Parliament to be moved, this is being ongoing, I think, for the past 10, 15 years. And no final decision was taken as to the move of Parliament to another centre. When I became the minister, I said to Cabinet that to enable the consideration of moving the seat of Parliament to anywhere else in the country, the Constitution says that it must be done through an Act of Parliament. And there's no Act of Parliament as yet, and a request to the Speaker of Parliament so that we can change, so that we can bring a bill to Parliament to decide the move. So at this stage, there are no discussions around the move of Parliament. I think I dealt with all my questions, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Minister Dini.
The matter raised is what additional security measures shall we put in place? That's additional, because it's not as though there are no security measures in place. One of the, I don't know how I'll describe this. One of the areas which I have identified personally as a possible loophole. If you come from St. George's, and you're walking to Parliament, between that passage between Parliament, the fencing, and the building, the museum, just outside of Parliament. If you look at that, it can pose a threat. You do have fencing there, what we call, I don't know what this one is called, what we now call balustrades. You do have something like that. But you also have a guardhouse right at the corner, which is not occupied, and it has not been manned for years. Am I right, Honorable Folek? It has not been, but if you stand there and look across, and you'll see the Taj Hotel. Personally, we don't know how the man or the woman entered the parliamentary precinct, but if you look at that area, yes, you may have your iron kind of sharpened iron gate, but if you look at it, it is quite low. But the other thing which, talking about improvement of security, one of the things which we have to do, and of course it's something which we will discuss beyond this, I think that much as the building now, as in Parliament, is completely gutted by fire, I shudder to imagine what would have happened if there were members in the assembly. I'm raising this particularly because on a day I was chairing just before Parliament adjourned, the Honorable Mazoni took the floor on one of the days and said, Madam Speaker, there's smoke in the National Assembly. Then, of course, the table assistants then went and checked, and they came back and reported that somebody must have been smoking and threw a cigarette stub in the courtyard. Now, with what has happened now, right, you can't not pause and go back and digest and look into everything which has been raised with you before. So it's one of those things which now I would be interested to hear from those who went and checked exactly what had happened on that day. Because she said there's smoke in the chamber, there's a smell of something burning. And then they checked, we got a report. And then it intensified. And it ended there. So, for me, I think this is an opportunity to go back even to that. On that day, what may have been happening, or what may have happened. And then, of course, we were talking amongst ourselves as the presiding officers, and we were saying, I've heard members sometimes saying, the police at the gates are very strict, they are very difficult when members want to access their offices and so on. But actually, if you come to think of it, if you go to other parliaments in some countries, you will see that when a vehicle drives into the parliamentary precinct, or not just parliamentary precinct, even in government buildings, right? If you look at how we park our vehicles there, underground, but actually there isn't a proper, what do you call it, Minister Tilly? Scanning of the vehicles. So I would want us to say this provides all of us an opportunity to see which other areas require, other than having the parliamentary security services, the police, what else should the police have access to enhance our security systems in Parliament? What else should the parliamentary security services have? What other, there's technology out there, beyond cameras. There's technology. The people are using all manner of gadgets to make sure that they secure the environments where they are. So this, painful as it is, should now provide us an opportunity to look at what else we can do. So your question is well placed, that what is it? What else are we going to do? And all of those things, of course, will have to be discussed together with the Department of Public Works so that we can all agree on how we improve our systems. I think that's the only matter now which was left. The other question was about the protection services, and it is a matter which we had talked to earlier on to explain that there isn't such a directive which was issued to the protection services. Of course, the matter of, it's 5 years now since the previous former head of security, since she resigned from Parliament, and that there hasn't been a head of security. It is a matter which we are dealing with. Even before this fire broke out, by the time we went on recess, it is a matter which we were discussing and finding a way of resolving. Thank you.
Yes, I just want to respond to the smoking incident that happened in November of 2021. The moment the smell of smoke in the National Assembly was logged as a complaint to the Facility Management of Public Works, the technical people came out. And as you know, there's a little courtyard outside the National Assembly where people can smoke. So somebody has been smoking there and nipped a cigarette in the bin that was still, there was still fire on the cigarette. That caused some smoke in the bin. And then next to that smoking area is a fume extractor. So that extractor then extracted those fumes coming out of the bin where the person didn't put out his cigarette or her cigarette, and pulled all of that smell into the whole air conditioning system within Parliament. And that is what has happened that day. So I think the recommendation was that either that smoking area be moved where it is more open, where people can smoke. But it's not a safe area from that experience that people don't always put out their cigarettes completely. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. I think we have come to the conclusion of our press conference. Let me thank the presiding officers and the Minister for this briefing. Thank you, colleagues, for logging into the virtual platform and for being here physically. Just cooperate with us, just like the way we brought you in. We are going to assist you also to go back to your stations where you were stationed. As you will have heard that the area, the scene remains a crime scene, but it's also for your protection because it is very dangerous. So we don't want people to be diverted to the dangerous areas. It has not been easy to have access to this place. We have escorted you, so I wanted to deal with the question of the lady that it's practically easy to access this parliament. We made it easy because we went outside the place so that we can come in for this press conference, and we are going to be escorting you out today. So
Well, a very good afternoon to you. If you've just joined us, you are watching SA Today with me, Unati Bagyasha. Well, you've been watching the briefing around the fire that destroyed parts of the National Assembly and old assembly buildings in Parliament in Cape Town. Well,